Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching the Papow Political Vigilante. Oh, man. So it's so funny today. I wake up and I get like a text and I say, oh, my God, you hear about Tucker Carlson? And I go on Twitter and everyone's talking about Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon. Oh, nutty. And everyone's having an opinion about it. So the first thing I go, after reading all this, I was fired. Don Lemon, oh, blah, 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 and all the theories are floating around. And then I just sat back and I went, what are they distracting us from? What do they not want us to talk about? What are we all getting in a tizzy about? And to see some people on the left, like Tucker Carlson was a freedom of truth or was a voice of truth. Tucker Carlson said so much nonsense. I will give him credit for when Jimmy Dore went on there and Jimmy got Tucker to see his view on Julian Assange. I'll give him credit for that. But Tucker Carlson's very right-wing, and he's part of the propaganda machine. He's not some outsider hero. He's part of the machine. Part of the propaganda machine in America is to keep people fighting. Are you Fox? Are you CNN? Are you Red? Are you Blue? Are you Tucker? Are you Rachel Maddow? Are you Anderson Cooper? Are you, Sean Hanratty or whatever that idiot's name is? They're all part of the orchestrated battles and controversy to keep us fighting, to keep us distracted from, first and foremost, that we're in class warfare. Tucker Carlson is rich, just like Rachel Maddow is, just like Joyanne Reid is, just like they're all rich people. They have 7, 8-figure incomes. Most of them are in the 8-figure range. Their net worth is probably between 8 and 9 figures. So that they're part of the propaganda machine. And Tucker Carlson goes against the official narrative a handful of times just to for his own personal branding or whatever, but he's part of the propaganda machine, just like CNN. You got to know that. So when everyone's all of them talking about it, I was like, what's our daily distraction? What's the distraction du jour? Well, gang, it didn't take me long. Because my first instinct was there's probably some Epstein shit they're covering up. That's my go-to on this channel. If you've watched this channel I've been talking about Epstein for almost 4 years now, since July of 2019 when he first got arrested. And I have a whole Epstein playlist. And one of the things I've talked about was the ties to the banking industry, right? Deutsche Bank and JPMorgan. So I was like, I just typed in Epstein into my search engine. And I saw about this. So I talked about it on Status Coup last week, but Jamie Dimon, CEO of JPMorgan Chase, was brought in to be deposed last week. So in this deposition, I knew when I heard about the deposition, I go, one of two things is going to happen. It's going to be closed and we're not going to hear about what they brought out because we've learned nothing after Ghislaine Maxwell getting arrested. There should be a slew. This should be a politician, billionaire, CEO, movie star is getting indicted. But that's not happening because they deliberately cover it up. So Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JPMorgan Chase, is getting deposed. So I said either they're going to just say, oh, we didn't find anything, or they're going to uncover stuff and bury it. So guess what happened? Weird. The day, what a crazy coincidence. What is being happening in the deposition is this. JPMorgan exec sure cleared a lot of calendar time for a former client they say they fired in disgust. Jamie's boys and girls were regulars at Epstein's place for years after they allegedly stopped working with him. So that's what's coming out. And wacky, the day this comes out, so he got deposed over on, I think, Friday, and the deposition is starting to come out. The day all this stuff starts coming out, oh, Tucker and Don Lemon get fired. Weird. What a wacky coincidence. What a wacky coincidence. So other YouTube shows are going to talk about this and Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about Epstein on this show. Why? Because that's what we talk about. And YouTube shows with big followings that are all caught up in this hullabaloo, Don Lemon, Tucker Carlson, they get a lot of clicks off of it, right? They get clicks. And sure, there is a value, and I've talked about it, and we'll continue to talk about how the corporate media is, but Tucker Carlson's part of the propaganda machine. Even if Tucker Carlson had me on his show, I would say, thanks for having me on your show, Tucker. And, you're part of the problem. If you were a true journalist, you would really be doing stuff. And if you're telling me you can't, then you got to ask yourself, what's more important, your integrity or the 8-figure paychecks? But that's why I've never been on Tucker Carlson. Because I think the people in charge know that I don't have such a massive, frail ego that I'll, give up my own integrity just to have somebody stroke me. Yeah, that's why I've never been on that show. If somebody tells me they like the work that I'm doing, I will appreciate that. But if they're doing stuff that I don't agree with, I will say I don't agree with that. But let's get into this. There's other shows probably live streaming right now that are going, oh my God, Tucker, and we're going to talk about Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein developed from, so this is this article from dealbreaker.com, not some huge news source, but they're the only ones that dropped this within the last couple hours. This came out like 6 hours ago. It's 10:06 p.m. It's 5:50 p.m. on Monday, April 24th. 5:50 p.m. Pacific time. So this came out about noon, right? Interesting timing. It is understandable that in retrospect, one would want to downplay just how close a relationship one had with a now dead sex criminal. Certainly, this has been JPMorgan Chase's approach. For years, the party line was that the bank did business with Epstein as it would any other rich guy, but had no idea. We didn't know. How could we know? Like the Clintons play this card. Idea that he wasn't, and had no idea what he was doing when he wasn't selling at a hedge fund. It cut ties with him in 2013, a bit late to be sure, given that he became a registered sex offender 5 years earlier, but still there was nothing to be seen here. Yeah, he got busted in 2008, and then that was in Florida as a registered sex offender. 2009 is when Acosta, then working in West Palm Beach, Florida, where Mar-a-Lago is, weird, gave him the sweetheart deal, right? So just to give everybody the quick timeline. So he got arrested the first time in 08, 09. 09 is when he was given the sweetheart deal. And he was allowed to go to this like country club prison in Florida and literally leave. And then Trump appointed Acosta into his, okay. So this is what we're supposed to believe. So even if we believe the JPMorgan Chase narrative that they cut ties with a registered sex offender 5 years after he became a registered sex offender, that right there, their own watered down narrative makes them very guilty. But there's more evidence, of course. As Apollo Global Management founder Leon Black could have told JPMC, once the lawsuits start flying, the clean and pat stories about purely and strictly limited business relationships levied with the occasional picnic on private islands whose other uses have nothing tend to begin to fall apart. So when the U.S. Virgin Islands claim against the bank for facilitating Epstein's criminal ickiness unveiled some 1,200 emails between Epstein and JPMorgan former private banking chief Jess Staley, who JPMorgan Chase defended him to the hilt. So let's go to that real quick. So who is Jess Staley, you want to ask? On the closest to me, that's Jess Staley, right? Moving from left to right. That right next to him is Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton. There's Jeffrey Epstein. Right next to him is Bill Gates. Bill Gates, we know, his wife, Melinda Gates, she said in an interview, one of the reasons she got divorced was she didn't like the ties that he had to Epstein. Bill Gates has lied, saying, I barely knew him. I've only known him since 2011. That's not true. He has ties to Epstein going back to 1997. We've shown you this. Boris Nikolic was the Gates advisor and helped out with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and was the executor of Epstein's will. Okay? Quick little letting everybody know. So let's go then now to this, what has been happening as a result of Jess Staley, right? So here's Jess Staley, and then let's look at this one. Now there's Jess Staley. Okay. This is from February. Okay. The exchange with a convicted sex offender on his work email are less than innocuous than his lawyers say. Right. Former Barclays CEO Jess Staley, and again, tried to make it like, we didn't know, right? And like many prominent person before him, that has become impossible to admit that he only knew Epstein professionally, which on the surface could see like, we all know people in our lives, like, the guys at the car wash, I just know them professionally. I know their first name. Somebody works at the bank, I know their first name. I don't know them outside of that at all, right? And I could show you, I have no proof. I have no cell phones. I have no emails with them. I have no contact with them. But so then if I said, I only know this guy when I go to the bank, and then I have all these emails and phone calls, you'd be like, wait a minute, Graham. That's what they're trying to claim. So again, then you sound guilty. And we know this from when we had retired child crimes investigator Eric Oldenburg on the show numerous times. That's a red flag for an investigator. The guy's lying, right? I don't know. I barely know this guy. And then why do you have all these emails? Why were you hanging out at his house? Right? So, the U.S. Virgin Islands Attorney General to thank for making that possible. The AG and himself for sending 1,200 emails to a sex offender client. Right? In December 2009, Staley sent another alleged mass missive to Epstein. I realized the danger in sending this email, but it's great to be able to today to give you in New York City a long, heartfelt hug. So when all hell breaks loose and the world is crumbling, I will come here and be at peace, Staley wrote to Epstein in November 2009. Presently, I'm in a hot tub with a glass of white wine. This is an amazing place, truly amazing. Next time we're here together, I owe you much, and I deeply appreciate a friendship I have few so profound. And if you're wondering why Staley, then leading JPMorgan Chase's private bank, so it went from Barclays to JPMorgan Private Bank, was emailing Epstein from Epstein's own hot tub. After all, this was a purely professional relationship. So surely Staley, the only person to have transacted an actual bit of business with Epstein, was there on the island in the hot tub to meet with his client. Well, it's because Epstein, with known sex criminal, Staley seems to have spent a lot of time on Little St. James Island's client. Then Staley, who reportedly sailed his yacht to Epstein's island during the course of their friendship, emailed Epstein again in January 2010. Again, this is Epstein's under house arrest. Arrived at your harbor, the banking boss wrote, someday we have to do this together. So he was on his boat. He was at his private island. Some other persons, you just appreciated its natural Caribbean beauty for picnics and, of course, hot tubs, and perhaps expressions of affection and friendship are all that those emails in addition. And, of course, from purely professional matters. Here's more emails. In a memorandum also filed on Wednesday, attorneys for the U.S. Virgin Islands said that Epstein emailed Staley photos of young women in seductive poses. In August 2009, the financiers asked Staley whether he'd need anything while in the UK capital, and Staley answered, "Yep." That was fun, Staley wrote to Epstein in mid-2010. Say hi to Snow White. What character would you like next? Beauty and the Beast, Staley wrote, to which Epstein answered, well, one side is available. So knowing what Epstein is a pedophile, right? These emails are a whole lot less innocuous than Staley's lawyer promised, just as Staley's relationship with Epstein seems a whole lot less professional after reading them. But they're hardly the smoking gun the Virgin Islands seems to indicate when they says they point to Staley being involved in Epstein's sex trafficking operation. Well, you're participating in this. He's involved. If he's helping Epstein finance it, then he's involved, right? We know this from talking to, again, retired child crimes investigator Eric Oldenburg. Just like if I finance a drug operation, I'm not actually on the street selling it, but I finance it, I'm guilty of that. If I finance a crime, right? If I buy the getaway car for you to use to go rob a bank, I'm guilty. If I'm helping Jeffrey Epstein, if I'm Jess Staley and I'm helping Jeffrey Epstein launder his money, guilty. They definitely do suggest so this is where this article is trying to I don't know. Then they're trying to soften this towards the end. I don't know if somebody got in their ear. Always thoughts. They do suggest Epstein thought his buddy Jess was a bit of a drunk. Always thoughts of alcohol, he wrote to Staley in 2009. Although in context, Staley's reference to French wine may be read as one of those code words his lawyers swear he never used with Epstein. Unfortunately for Staley, the attorney general's got some of what those in the legal business call circumstantial evidence. For instance, after telling Epstein he'd have some needs in London, Epstein allegedly sent $3,000 to a woman, and not just any woman, but the same woman he'd given $2,000 to coinciding with Staley's visit to Epstein's Florida. The Virgin Islands is not suing Staley. It's suing JPMorgan Chase, which it and some others say should have done more to stop Epstein. Boy, you think? Perhaps by giving him fewer than 55 accounts, which to allege draw when women needed to be paid around the time his banker at JPMorgan Stanley paid him to visit. 55 accounts. But we didn't know. Oh, Staley just likes Disney characters. Say hi to Snow White. JPMorgan Chase is having none of that, noting that U.S. Virgin Islands didn't exactly do a particularly bang-up job of catching Epstein while he was trafficking teenage girls through their jurisdiction. That's a fair argument, to which the Attorney General's office noted that it didn't have access to roughly 1,200 key pieces of evidence. Nice. Staley emailed freely with Epstein about his visits to Little St. James over his work email account in full view of JPMorgan Chase. Wow. So you know this, if you have a job and a work email, your bosses can monitor your work emails. So this is, going back to this, Staley was the protege of CEO Jamie Dimon, who now is sort of now they're going to distance themselves. That's what they'll do. If you're mid-level, so Staley was not as high up as Jamie Dimon, so they're going to distance themselves from him. The JP Morgan's claimed that it closed Epstein's accounts and ceased having anything to do with him in 2013, the year Staley left the bank. It hinges on a few other things, such as the review of Epstein's relationship with the bank that may or may not, but was supposed to be conducted by Diamond himself, and now just widespread knowledge of Epstein's predilections were at 270 Park, but mostly hinges on the story of JPMorgan firing a lucrative client in disgust in 2013. If that's true, Diamond, at his upcoming deposition, can stick to the story that the who Michigas, I don't like the writing of this journalist, was Staley's underhanded doing, and therefore the bank itself can't possibly be held responsible. That's their claim, right? If the bank got rid of Epstein shortly after Staley quit in the first days of January 13, what was private banking executive John Duffy doing at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse in April? Wacky. Maybe he just got lost. Maybe he needed to borrow a cup of milk. And what was banker Justin Nelson doing there a half dozen times between 2014 and 2017? Again, Epstein probably forgot to left some pens in the office and he was just returning them. To say nothing of the little trip to Epstein's New Mexico ranch in 2016. You know, that's the ranch that Clintons visited numerous times. What did managing director Paul Barrett meet with him at least 5 times between 2014 and 2017? Oh, JPMorgan, guilty. But because they have money, they'll probably get away with it. Even if these embarrassing in retrospect facts can be explained away, which they can't, as perfectly innocent meetings with a former client, and even if Mary Rhodes can explain why she claimed only to have met Epstein on the day in 2013, she relieved him of the bank services when in fact she paid a couple of visits to Shez Epstein herself, including the very same year. Their removed ties with someone just about everyone at JPMorgan Chase knew was a bit of a creep and possibly could deal worse for years. And executives and compliance staffers began writing emails and memos sharing press reports about Epstein and discussing what to do with his accounts, classifying them as high risk according to the Virgin Islands lawsuit. The first time Epstein was indicted for sex crimes, he didn't become a convicted sex offender until 2008. So there was 2 years of trial. So there's emails, they're damning emails. They knew, oh, this guy's bad news. It's like all of it. It's like Penn State. There's all the emails between Joe Paterno and the administration that knew about Jerry Sandusky for 11 to 12 years. There's emails dating where they're just like, we got to cover this up. This could hurt the program. Nobody cares about the kids being molested. Nobody cares about it at all. Just it'll hurt the program. It could hurt the bank. So they did business with Epstein for 5 that he was being indicted for sex crimes. Full knowledge of it. JPMorgan executives with Epstein had been accused of using cash to pay for girls to come to his house. Mr. Elwood said in a previously reported deposition for the lawsuits, a compliance team pointed out that Epstein routinely made large cash withdrawals up to $80,000 at a time, more than $750,000 a year, according to the lawsuit. JPMorgan Compliance Department was pressuring the bank to drop Epstein. So like that's the lawyers going, this guy's bad news, get rid of him. And they wouldn't. Weird that while they're getting pressure to drop this guy, all these top executives are going to his Manhattan penthouse, going to New Mexico, going to his island in the Virgin Islands, riding on his yacht. Weird. See below new allegations of an investigation related to child trafficking. Are you still comfortable with this client who is now a registered sex offender? One compliance officer wrote in a 2010 email. JPMorgan stuck with Epstein and granted him the ability that year to borrow against his $50 million account. Let me tell you something about banks. All they care about is money, obviously. So they don't care. He had a $50 million account. So they wanted him to take a line of credit against it. If he pulls his money out, if they kick him loose as a client, they lose his $50 or $100 million, right? Because not only, see what you're talking about, what 50 million represents to a bank like JPMorgan Chase is at least 500 million to $1 billion that they can loan, because banks, these corrupt banks, do 10 to 20 to 1. So for every dollar they have in physical savings, they'll loan out 10 to 20. So $50 million is $500 million to $1 billion they can loan out and get money from interest. That's how banks make their money. Give us your deposits, give us your investments, and then we loan it out. And this is fractional banking. We've talked about this. This is what collapsed the banks in 08 and 09, and this is what is going to collapse the banks now. So that's why they're like, well, sex trafficking, schmeck trafficking. We got 50 million we can make money from. The bank's anti-money laundering compliance director contacted General Counsel Stephen Cutler to get him to reapprove the relationship according to a recent filing. Top bank executives continued meeting with Epstein. Epstein had pitched fund. Ugh, creep. We would help bring in wealthy clients that could put in a minimum of 100 million, according to the people familiar with the matter. Now, this is a very specific thing. And what I've told you, what Epstein, how did he have this fake hedge fund? What would Epstein do? In his Manhattan place, there was a creep room in Manhattan, in New Mexico, and on the island, but mainly like the Manhattan penthouse. People would come over. A powerful, wealthy person would come over. Apes get out. Again, we saw it on the news. The FBI wheeling out of Epstein's Manhattan penthouse. Those hand trucks, boxes of files and hard drives and photos. This is, you videotape somebody, having sex with a child. See how this works? For months, Mr. Earls, Mr. Staley, and Epstein discussed working together on the fund. Epstein's potential compensation was a sticking point, according to emails reviewed by the Journal. Everyone is marching together to create something very powerful, and we will solve the comp issue. That's compliance. We'll solve the compliance issue. You mean the guy's just an issue? Mr. Rhodes wrote to Epstein in 2011. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Tucker Carlson Don Lemon is your distraction du jour. Because we don't want to find out that not just Jamie Dimon, but all of the other top executives at Chase were involved in not only laundering money for Epstein, yeah. Other shows are talking about Don Lemon and this and that. I'm still talking about Epstein. Now, I've been demonetized for over 2 years now. We're in our 3rd year of demonetization, and yet we're still here. Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth. There is no place more clear than the Epstein case of following the money, connecting the dots, and getting the truth. I just did it for you. Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon are both paid big money by the propaganda machine. Tucker Carlson's probably going to get hired by CNN, which will be awesome. And, Don Lemon will, get hired by MSNBC, whatever, So, yeah. And someone just put in the chat, Jamie Dimon got bailout money too. Pedophile, sex trafficking, billionaires. Bill Gates, as I mentioned, deliberately wouldn't give up the patent for the COVID vaccine to 3rd world countries because he wanted those countries to die. He didn't want to give up the vaccine to them. But I was accused of being a sellout to Big Pharma. No, I don't sell out to Big Pharma. I don't sell out to right-wing clicks. I don't sell out to Tulsi Gabbard or Tucker Carlson or any of them. Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth. Shave your knuckles for justice. Thanks for making Gotham great again. This is the People's Channel. Boom. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood and go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a PO box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.